We all know that fueling without carbohydrates while exercising is a terrible idea. Oh, this feels awful. Ah, it hurts. My legs are empty.
But how important is your breakfast when it comes to your performance? To find out, we're taking on 2 different full gas efforts, 2 different breakfasts across 2 different days.
One after a high-carb breakfast,
The other after a full protein-rich breakfast, satisfying and filling, but very low in carbohydrates.
but how will that impact our efforts?
And is breakfast really the most important meal of the day?
Guess we're going to find out.
Let's do it. The route we've chosen to put this to the test is a 4-kilometre segment, including GCN's favourite testing climb, Banner Down, close to HQ here in the UK. We've extended it to include the flatter top section too, though, to increase our effort duration. Right, we've both had our first breakfast to this little experiment, protein rich.
Oh, it was lovely. I was so hungry. I've been waiting ages to have something to eat.
So we've had a double dose of scrambled eggs and smoked salmon. So about 5 eggs, 3 big slices of smoked salmon.
Oh, it was lovely.
I've got a small confession to make.
Yeah.
I actually had more eggs before I came here. I got really hungry, so I had 3 eggs.
In addition to the 5 we basically had now.
Yeah.
You want about 8 eggs.
I was hungry and I was up really early. But anyway, it's very protein rich and very minimal carbohydrates. So in terms of numbers, that's 68 grams of protein, 50 grams of fat, roughly here, and around 745 calories.
My somewhat more conservative breakfast is 53 grams of protein, 35 grams of fat, and about 530 calories.
And very minimal carbs. I think roughly in carbs, it's like 0.2 grams or something. I worked
Basically
it out.
nothing.
Basically nothing. But we're fueled up, we're ready to go. Should we get into the effort?
So the effort.
Let's do it.
Boom.
Beep, 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 beep.
Oh, bloody lovely.
He's off. Just don't ride behind him with those eggy farts.
Oh, this feels awful. I can't believe Connor's made me do this with no carbohydrate. All in the name of science. I definitely feel like my legs are empty. I need to get my speed up. It hurts. And lap. Oh, that was terrible. Protein-rich breakfast. Done.
Right then, fueled like Rocky. He has egg smoothies, doesn't he, for breakfast? And we're off. Actually, not feeling too bad. But I always say this, and it's still quite a long way to go. Five minutes in, keeping the power pretty good for my standards. Once the final steeper part is climb, in that flat section over the top. Actually felt pretty good there, like managed the effort well. There's a couple of times when I thought maybe I could have done with digging a bit deeper, but I think it's such a mental thing. I think really not too much difference. It's how I normally feel, but what's gonna be interesting is to see if I can replicate that tomorrow once I'm fueled with the carbohydrates.
Okay, effort's done. Before we talk about it, legs out?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to give it a proper effort. I
Fair
don't
play.
want to be sweaty for the rest of the day.
Mine was absolutely disgusting. I felt like I was running on fumes.
Really, that's interesting.
Yeah, how about you?
I felt pretty normal, personally.
Really?
Yeah.
I was
I'd
adamant
say-
you'd have bonked.
Yeah, no, I felt pretty normal. But I'm quite used to riding without breakfast at the moment. Because I go early before the kids wake up.
I'm not, because I literally, the first thing I do when I get up is have coffee and breakfast every single day. So my glycogen stores are going to be far more depleted than yours, because I have ridden more this morning to get to where we're obviously filming and doing the test.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because we're closer to my house than yours.
Yeah,
so
convenient.
I didn't do as much riding as Alex did, so I do think you depleted way more of those stores than I did, which I think is going to show itself in this little experiment. Anyway, we meet back here tomorrow. I'm going to repeat the test.
Yeah.
This time, the proper carby breakfast.
I think by now we all know the importance of carbohydrates for cycling. They're the most efficient fuel source per unit of oxygen used, like high-octane turbo boosters, but for your muscles. Per gram, they contain less calories than fat, but when oxygen demand is high, they can be oxidized fast to provide energy when it's needed the most. Carbohydrates are stored as glycogen in our muscles and liver, and it's these reserves we typically use when we're exercising, particularly at high intensities. So I'm really interested to see what happens in this experiment when we predominantly fuel our bodies using a different source of energy.
Fat is another fuel source that our bodies use for energy, but at much lower levels of exercise intensity. That's because it requires a lot of oxygen to metabolize. So despite having vast stores of it, once we go anywhere above 65% of VO2 max, we just aren't getting the energy needed from fat quick enough for it to be of any use to our muscles, and we need it most. Protein's main job is to build, repair and maintain tissue, such as muscle fibers that get stressed from our riding. Protein can act like a fuel source, but it's not as efficient or straightforward as how carbohydrates are used by our bodies for energy. Why? Here is Dr. Sam Shepherd from Precision Fuel and Hydration to explain more.
During long duration exercise, or when we're fasted for long periods, then the body will start breaking down the muscle to generate amino acids. And we know we can use those amino acids to essentially create more glucose through a process which is known as gluconeogenesis. But that's a relatively slow process, isn't optimal. And obviously we don't want to rely heavily on protein for energy, because then alongside that you're going to get muscle loss. You're going to obviously build up things like ammonia, and that contributes to fatigue. And also, it's just going to take longer to recover from the training that you're doing there as well, if we're starting to rely heavily on protein as a fuel source.
And you just touched on that there, but just to kind of clarify, what is protein's kind of like main importance in a fueling sort of strategy?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, because I think certainly we're taught to think about protein as really critical for improving strength and getting big, essentially. You know, the guys that go to the gym and want to improve body mass, and we think about protein as a really important thing there. But for an endurance athlete, it's also incredibly important. So whenever we're doing some endurance exercise, we're going to create micro damage to the muscle, micro tears in the muscle, and protein is going to provide the building blocks to repair and recover from that exercise. But also, one of the things that we're trying to do when we train is, create adaptation. Now, what I mean by that is an increase in mitochondrial mass or proteins, all the enzymes in the muscle that are going to help us aerobically. And we need amino acids which come from the protein that we ingest to actually facilitate and support that. So if we want to adapt to the training we're doing, then eating sufficient protein is going to be, incredibly important to support that. And, we can think slightly even beyond that in terms of, supporting the immune system. Again, when we do longer endurance rides, then you're going to temporarily kind of suppress your immune system. So protein's really important in that post-exercise period from a recovery perspective, from an adaptation perspective, and also to ensure that, we're supporting our immune system essentially as well.
Another day, another breakfast. This time we have filled ourselves up with carbohydrates. A very typical breakfast, I think, to what we kind of normally have
Yeah, it was
before a ride.
much more satisfying for me. Should I
Really?
give you my stats quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
Obviously, these are sort of approximate figures rather than like scientific measurements. 700 calories, about 100 grams of carbohydrates, 18-ish of fats, and about 16 of protein.
It's interesting you said you were more satisfied after this breakfast, because I felt more satisfied after the protein.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, I had 1,020 calories.
How have you had 1,000 calories?
I had a little extra this morning, so it's a bit of oats.
A pre-breakfast breakfast?
I have to get up so early. I can't survive for 4 hours without anything to eat.
I went starving again this morning.
Anyway, this is my breakdown of the macronutrients. So 1,000 calories, around 133 grams of carbs, 26 grams of protein, 27 grams of fat. So
Okay, I can
a
deal with
bit
that.
more than yesterday in terms of energy.
So we'll have a little bit of ride around on the bike, get ourselves sorted, and then effort number 2, yeah?
Time to give it a whirl up the hill. Good job, mate.
May the best breakfast win. Okay, day 2, carbohydrate breakfast. Let's go. 3, 2, 1, we're off. Oh, beautiful clip in there. I feel better than yesterday, that's for sure. I don't know how much impact it's going to have on the time, but hopefully I'm significantly bigger. We're about to crest the top of the main climb, and then it's the fast flat bit. I'm in just as much pain as yesterday, but I think I'm going faster. The power's higher, so that should be the case. Right. Get aero, keep the power on. Last bit now. 5, 4, 3, 2. Ah, there we go. Oh, I'm glad that's over. Day 2, breakfast 2 done. I hope that was worth it. I can't wait to see how Connor gets on. Can almost taste breakfast the second time round as well.
Right then, carbs are in, warm-up complete. Time to give it one last effort up the climb. And we're off. Carbs up and my typical breakfast consumed, it was time for another effort on the climb. Breakfast is of course a key meal before any morning ride. So according to Dr. Shepherd, what's the best advice to optimise it for our riding?
We're thinking about breakfast should ideally have, a primary focus on carbohydrates, and most of the time we're talking about fairly slow release carbohydrates there, because they're going to be released in a slow process from the gut into the bloodstream. That will keep our blood glucose concentrations, our blood sugar levels, relatively consistent. We're not going to create huge spikes, which would then take a little bit of time to recover from. We feel a bit rubbish after them. And then also we want a source of protein in there as well. We've talked a lot about protein already, and we want a little bit of protein in that breakfast as well. And the size of that breakfast is going to depend a little bit on how long you're intending to ride for, of course. 2 to 3 hours at the weekend, you probably have a primary focus on like the slow release carbohydrates, so something like porridge. You might have a little bit of peanut butter with that, a bit of jam, and then maybe 1 or 2 boiled eggs would be absolutely fine. If you're going out for longer, then you'll need probably a little bit more of a substantial breakfast. So you might have your porridge, but you also might have a couple of slices of toast. And I think at that point as well, it becomes more important to add some sources of fructose as well. So things like honey or jam or even like apple sauce is quite a good source of fructose. And the reason to include fructose there is because it will also contribute to sparing or increasing your liver glycogen stores, which we know overnight they are somewhat depleted by being fasted overnight. So you then need to bring those back up to what we might consider more normal levels before you head out on your ride. And that becomes more important the longer that you're going to be out there for. So adding those fructose sources in, particularly when you're going for 4 or 5 hours and where there's going to be some high intensity work in there probably, becomes really critical.
I think I'm pretty good. It's a little early in the effort to tell. I can kick pretty hard. Got a little bit in reserve. Onto steeper sections now though, is where it's really going to matter the most. Last little bit of climb. I think I'm a bit better than yesterday, despite a bit of fatigue. Felt pretty good in that actually. We're doing it back-to-back days, so there's always going to be a bit of fatigue. But I'm interested to see how that compares to the protein, seeing as kind of fueled properly this morning compared to not yesterday. And if that's enough to overcome the fatigue from doubling up the days. But I think that went well. I think I was a bit faster, but I'm going to pause in a second, just properly look at the data. I feel like I had a bit more kind of, I could kick a bit when I needed to. I think that was the way to describe it. Just on some of those steeper gradients, I could dig in a bit more. Felt like I had a little bit more in the tank, but yeah, proper effort. Anyway, get my breath back, see how Alex got on.
Okay, results time. Connor, I need to know if all our hard work of eating, drinking and cycling has really been worth it.
Well, I've been going through the results. We've had a bit of time now. It's interesting, I think, what it's showing. So in terms of my run, start with that first.
Yeah, you went for a run, did you?
Well, my run up the climb on my bike. It's an expression. But, so there's not that much difference, really, for me. I mean, my first time, 9 minutes 30 on the protein, I did 368 watts average power.
Yeah.
Then with the carbs, I went a bit faster, 9 minutes 15 seconds faster, 375 average power. So it's like 7 watts in it, 15 seconds.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. I think that is, I mean, as well though it was back to back, so it was the day after, so I had a bit of fatigue and I still was able to go a bit faster, although I did have the carrot of knowing what my time was, so I could just dig a bit more, but my results have thrown somewhat of a curveball out there, if I'm honest. Well, no, not, sorry, not quite a curveball, but the difference was far more than I ever anticipated. So, cycle ride, one, I did 10 minutes, 21 seconds, only 260 watts. Honestly, I just had nothing in my legs. You were empty.
That was all I could do. We'll talk about some of the reasonings behind this in a minute. But day two, fueled with carbohydrates, 9 minutes 40. I went 40-ish 1 seconds faster, and I did 80 more watts.
Wow.
I was absolutely flying on the second day, and I felt like it.
Really?
Like I was like, I'm on it, I can put some effort in, I've got some energy ready to go. Now, it shouldn't come as a great surprise that fueling in two completely different ways has had an impact on performance, but I think for me, it's far more significant than I was going to anticipate. Yeah, that's a proper difference to be aware of for you. And you felt, I could tell you didn't really feel the greatest on just when you had low carb and you're on high protein. Maybe I'm just someone that it affects more, but also I'd done more riding before you, hadn't I? Yeah, and that is a really important nuance of this because I was doing my effort pretty close to the start of my ride. I was still pretty fresh, whereas you did an hour of kind of more of a kind of solid endurance to get to that effort. Yeah. So you'd used up more of your glycogen reserves, your carbohydrate stores before you did that all-out max effort up the climb. Yeah, I think it's important to stress that us doing this test isn't to prove that fueling with carbohydrates is better than fueling without them, but it was good to see how much impact that makes for two different people, and maybe some people might be even more extreme of a difference than what I was, and some people might really be even less impacted than what you were. That's it, yeah. I think it shows as well the importance of fueling the day before a ride, and making sure you load up. Your breakfast is still really key, but in a way, it's also just as important to start fueling as you're riding.
Because if you're missing breakfast and then not fueled, obviously it's going to go downhill. But I feel I could kind of get away with it if I did the low carb breakfast and then started eating properly on the ride.
Yeah, I think that it's like horses for courses, isn't it, really? So I think what we've proved is, like nearly everything in life, a bit of a balance is best. You can't just go one extreme or the other, but there's benefits to both methods of fueling.
And carbs are still
King.
top of the ranking table when it comes to fueling on your bike, let's face it.
And I guess there's going to be less impact if you're not trying to ride at such an intense effort.
That's it, that's true as well. But let us know what you think in the comment section down below. Have you tried riding without carbohydrates or going low on the carbs or potentially putting more protein into your diet? We'd love to hear from you and get involved in the discussion below. I think we'll be sticking to our nice porridgey.
I'm pleased it was that big a difference for me because I blooming love having like porridge and overnight oats for breakfast.
Me too.
Yeah.
I like eggs as well, but now I can have both.
I still can't get over yesterday. You had 8 eggs in the morning. I'm sorry, mate, that's not normal.
I'm 6'8". It's all in proportion.
Side note for the comments, also let us know how many eggs a day you think is acceptable to eat. Right, we're out of here. Love you, bye.